Welcome to another Top 10. This time, we'll be taking a look at my favourite arcade games from Taito. Taito were founded in Tokyo in 1953 by Michael Kogan and started off by importing vending machines and jukeboxes into Japan. Taito's production of video games didn't begin until 1973, but after that, they became one of the most prolific developers and distributors of arcade games. Several of Taito's arcade games are some of the most iconic in video game history, most notably the likes of Space Invaders and Arkanoid. During the late 90s, Taito's existence would begin to fade before finally being taken over by Square Enix in 2005. There is no denying just how much of an impact Taito had on the gaming industry, particularly in the 80s and 90s. They made some of my favourite arcade games of all time, so this is a list that was very difficult to put together. So let's begin in 1994 with a sequel to one of Taito's early classics. At number 10, I've chosen Elevator Action Returns. This sequel took the original formula and expanded everything from the graphics and level design to the weapons and enemies. You choose from one of 3 different characters, and after a helicopter drops you at the top of a building, it's time for action. As you navigate the floors, you'll need to find the bombs on each stage that are hidden behind the red doors. It can get very chaotic at times, and you'll often find that the screen is filled with fire, which just adds to the entertainment. It's just such a slick and well-designed game, and it's an absolute joy to go back and play anytime. At number 9, it's classic hack and slash action with Rastan. The game arrived in arcades in 1987 and sees you take on the role of a barbarian on a quest to slay a dragon and claim the promised riches. You start your adventure armed with a sword as you take on all manner of monsters as you navigate the dangerous terrain. There are alternative weapons, including an axe and a morning star, which improve power or reach. The game often balances on that fine line between a challenge and frustration, and you'll need plenty of patience and practice, and a lot of credits. (1988) saw a few notable entries in the arcade driving genre. You had Power Drift and Continental Circus, but none stood out quite as much as my choice for number 8, Chase HQ. You take on the role of Special Investigation Officers, and it's your mission to chase down specific enemy targets and ram them off the road. This was just such an amazing concept at the time. You had the fast-paced opening section of each stage where you must beat the clock to find a target, then it was all about the combat. Chase HQ is definitely one of my favourite all-time arcade driving games and received a superb port to the ZX Spectrum in 1989. Taito implemented multi-screen technology using projection in several of their arcade games, and arguably the most impressive of these were the Darius games. Darius II arrived in 1989 in both 3 and 2 screen variants, and this really enhanced the overall experience of this incredible shoot 'em up. The series is known for its unique enemy design, and its huge boss fights with robotic fish and sea creatures. Another feature that stood out at the time were the branching paths, which gave you a choice of different routes to take through the game. For me, the Darius series hit its peak with the second entry, and if I ever want to play a horizontal shoot 'em up, this is usually one of the first ones I turn to. I've gone with Dead Connection at number 6, which was released in 1992. This gangster-themed shoot-'em-up sees you take on the role of one of 4 detectives on a mission to take down a powerful crime family. The stages are set on a single screen with a set amount of enemies that need to be eliminated before you progress. The locations are very detailed and feature a lot of interactive elements, and there are plenty of weapon upgrades on offer too. Dead Connection is a fantastic shoot-'em-up that unfortunately never saw a release on home consoles. At number 5, I've chosen the Ninja Warriors, which arrived in arcades in 1987. This early side-scrolling beat-em-up utilised the same widescreen projection technology as Darius, so it was another huge cabinet. You take on the role of one of 2 cyborg ninjas with a mission to take on a corrupt government. The game starts on the streets as that iconic soundtrack kicks in and enemy soldiers start attacking you from both sides. The combat is very basic, but you are constantly on the move, and timing is vital if you want to survive. Taito made a few beat-em-ups, but most of them went under the radar and rarely brought anything new to the genre. But this one from 1990 really stood out. Growl sees you take on the role of one of 4 rangers who must stop a group of animal poachers that are destroying the wildlife. The weapons are a great feature of this one, with whips that can hit enemies in front and behind you, guns, swords, and some of the most over-the-top rocket launchers you could imagine. There are points in the game when even the wildlife join in to help you deal with the waves of enemies. If you haven't tried this one out, it's one I'd definitely recommend, especially if you're a fan of the genre. It's got everything you could want from a game like this, and much more. Arcade football games don't come much better than 1993's Taito Cup Finals, and it's my choice for number 3. This was the follow-up to 1990's Football Champ and featured improvements in almost every department. The graphics and presentation saw a big improvement, and the pace of the game is now a lot faster. As with most arcade football games, they stick to international teams, and there is a buy-in element that allows extra moves and player enhancements to be purchased. Taito Cup Finals is an absolute blast to play even today, and nothing beats scoring an unstoppable special strike from near the halfway line. There aren't many games quite as iconic as Operation Wolf. Back in 1987, walking into an arcade and seeing the machine gun mounted in front of the screen was an incredible experience. You take on the role of Roy Adams, a soldier who is on a mission to rescue a group of hostages. In order to progress through each stage, you need to eliminate a set number of soldiers, helicopters, tanks, and trucks. Ammo is limited, so be on the lookout for extra magazines, grenades, and health. I do have to mention the amazing sequel, Operation Thunderbolt. It's not quite as good as this one, but did add an extra machine gun for 2-player action. At number 1, I've chosen Bubble Bobble, the all-time classic bubble-smashing platform game that arrived in arcades in 1986. 2 dinosaurs called Bub and Bob must complete each screen by destroying enemies and picking up the fruits and power-ups they drop. It's such a simple game, but one that was delivered in such a way that it became instantly popular due to its memorable characters and unforgettable soundtrack. Bubble Bobble is an absolutely incredible game that still stands the test of time today, and one I can always go back to. There were some amazing ports released for consoles and home computers, and the series is still going strong today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below and subscribe to the channel for more retro gaming content.